everybody. Welcome to All
Saturday.
the Things. It is Saturday. Saturday in quarantine.
It is.
So it's really just another day.
It's really just
this day.
It's the only day now that we put makeup on.
Yes. Yes.
Get out of pajamas. I don't know what we're doing.
Yes.
Quarantine. I asked Emily this morning what quarantine day number we're on. Do you know?
42.
46.
Oh.
46.
According to Emily.
Oh.
Like only 45.
Emily's tally marks on the wall. She says it's 46.
Well, it feels like 792, but I'll keep my opinion to myself. We didn't tell you who we are in case
right.
you've never seen us for the first time. I am Monique Dusan.
I'm Krista Bontrager.
And this is All the Things Show, where we talk about all things culturally relevant from a historically Christian perspective.
Yes.
We also have Bob the Button Pusher. I don't know. Can you push a button and let us see
There
it?
he is.
There he is.
Woo.
There he is.
It's our favorite guy.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And please help us if you want to support this ministry by clicking on that share button to share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Yes.
That is the best way.
Like us, share it, follow us, Insta.
Comment.
We're not on Twitter.
No.
I'm on Twitter. The real Monique D. Selfless, shameless plug.
If we're blessed, you might make a tweet.
Yeah, literally, folks. Twitter's a dangerous world.
It is.
It is.
It'll harm your soul.
Yeah. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play.
Yeah.
We're there, people. We are there.
We are. We're even
Yes.
places I don't know about. Like I Googled us recently. I was like, oh, we're on this podcast stream. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't tell you this before I sat down, but someone reached out to me today and was like, I'm a professor at a university, and he heard my interview with Carol Swain.
Oh.
And he was wondering what my thoughts are about the tie between critical race theory and human trafficking.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, I don't even know that I have thoughts about that, but now I do. So that might be coming out in a video soon.
Yes, I'd love to hear that.
I was like, whoa. And if you're watching, hey.
People are finding us. That's a good thing. So help us out by clicking on that share button. Like, comment, follow, subscribe. All of those things help our analytics and help people find us. So very important to interact with the show if you want to keep us coming your way. And we want to encourage you to go to YouTube and interact with us on the chat box. You can do that through my Theology Mom channel. And we want to say hi to our friends Tracy and Allison checking in. Oh, our loyal follower, Laura Hartley. She's watching us from Wiley, Texas.
Did you see that article about the principal in Wiley?
No.
So there's this principal in Wiley, and he literally drove like 800 miles, not in one way, but I guess like around their community. It totaled 800 miles to be able to like talk to the graduating seniors since they won't have like a graduation. I was like, oh. And then I was wondering if Laura's daughter was a part of that high school community. She's not graduating.
Yeah, that is the principal.
I was like, oh, look at that. That was precious.
That's some quality education.
Hi, Nancy.
Nancy's checking in. Our friend Cynthia Hampton is checking in. That's great to see everyone. So tell us that you're watching the show, and we look forward to some interaction tonight on the show that I've entitled This and That.
This is going to be like the show that is like a shepherd's pie. You can just kind of throw things in it, and something good will come out. So, yes.
God willing.
It will be. It will be.
If you missed last week's show, you missed a wonderful interview with our new friend, Samuel Say. I'd love to have him back on the show sometime. We talked about the question of abortion and why is it an essential service, but also touched on issues related to critical race theory and abortion rates in the Black community.
Yes. And we came to the conclusion that abortion is not an essential service, but that those who define the word essential need a new dictionary. Yes.
But we can't go to church. We still in California.
I drove by Home Depot.
Yeah.
And the parking lot was full. Like there was not one spot left. And I was like, the devil is a lie. I can go and do a home remodel, but I can't go worship. I can go and buy lumber. Who wants lumber and tools? I was completely confused. Completely.
But here we are on day 46 of the quarantine.
Yep. Yep.
Still waiting to be able to gather and go to church. So, what else is happening with you right now? You went back to work.
Went back to work. Yeah, I think I said that last week. I went back to work. Gosh, numbers are still out of control. Last night, we did a service in a more lower socioeconomic income area. And
so when you say a service, you work at a food pantry.
Yeah, I work at a food pantry.
Yeah.
And so we give rather good sized portions of food. We partner with different like vendors, stores, restaurants, and things like that. And we also partner with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. And so we give out food parcels to families. We served 215 families last night. I could not believe it. We normally start at 4 and go 4 to 7. Yesterday we decided to start at 3, went from 3 to 7, and still had to turn people away because we're all volunteer run. I couldn't keep the volunteers there past 7. It was so bad. It was sad. Yeah. It was sad to have to turn people away.
So go watch our interview from a couple weeks ago with our friend Brian Crane. We talked about homelessness and some of the practical ideas of what people can do during this time. Find the local food pantry in your area, make some donations, find out what they need first.
Yeah.
What kind of donations they need. Because like right now, you guys aren't accepting clothes donations, but you need food.
No one is accepting clothes donations right now. It's just one of those things like, what are the essentials?
Yeah.
And the true definition of essential. And so we are only accepting clothing and making sure that we're only accepting food and making sure that food is really getting out to the people.
Yeah.
Yes, food and money. That's exactly how you can donate. Just in case you're wondering what would be some good things to donate, peanut butter is always a good thing to donate. Very high in protein, and you can give it out to homeless individuals. Mac and cheese is always a good thing to donate.
Those cup of soups where it's
cup of soups and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or pop can meals, especially if you're giving to a shelter or a pantry that specifically works with homeless individuals. Pop can meals, or go to the 99-cent store, the Dollar Tree, Dollar General, and get plastic cutlery, because a lot of pantries will have the pop cans, but then people are having to use their fingers and all of that, and they might not have a place to wash their fingers. They can, put those in like a paper towel or something like that and give that with the pop can meal. So
it's a really practical way to do something for your community. We just got
love your neighbor, people.
We just got a really cool share from my friend Diane Frame. So
thanks, Diane.
She lives in Wyoming. She's from West Covina, here at my hometown.
Wow, okay.
And she's the person who led me to the Lord when I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow. Oh, Diane,
so
look at
she
that.
just shared our show. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is.
That's so cool. Thank you, Diane. She's a wonderful and talented musician. I shared a video of hers a couple weeks ago on my public channel. Our friend Susanna's checking in. She also recommends almond butter for a food pantry donation.
Yes.
Something a little different than peanut butter. So, all right. So let's get into it here, into our hodgepodge of takes on things, and people can watch me implode tonight as I take a very unpopular take on something in a few minutes.
It's okay.
Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about this tweet this week by Jackie Hill Perry. Maybe before we get into
the tweet of the week?
No. Maybe before we look at the tweet, we should talk about who Jackie Hill Perry is.
You're gonna have to do that because I just really found out about her. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know enough to talk about who she is.
She wrote so she's she's
a popular conference speaker. Mm-hmm. She's doing the whole Christian conference circuit.
Yes, but she's popular because she once was homosexual, came out of that lifestyle, heterosexual, married, 3 kids. She's actually pregnant right now.
She's got a book out.
She has a book out, best-selling book called Good Gay Girl, Good God.
Yeah.
And I believe, I haven't read it, I believe it's her journey out of homosexuality.
Yeah.
What the Lord did to take her from there.
But people might be seeing her on the conference speaking tour. She's doing a lot of conferences. She is also like some kind of rap artist or something.
Never knew.
Spoken word artist.
Oh, I think she does spoken word, yes.
Something
she might be effect. With PC4M, some Poetry for Christ Ministries.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know there was such a thing like that.
I love spoken word, so.
Okay.
Yes, I think she was with PC4M for a while.
So here's her
P4CM.
tweet, and I'm wondering if maybe we can just talk about this a little bit and have you help me understand what's happening here.
It's always interesting to me, but not shocking, that many of the Christians that follow me, white evangelicals to be specific, I'm glad she's clear, love and affirm my courage and biblical integrity when it comes to my position on sexuality. But as soon as I mention Trump, race, and politics,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So scroll down a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get to Allie Beth Stuckey in just a minute. Go back up to the tweet. All right. So as you can see, this tweet got, some good action. It got 5,000 likes. So what is she saying here? Help me understand what her position is.
I think her position is quite clear, that she's wondering or questioning, or maybe not even questioning, maybe she already feels like she understands. But just putting it out there that a lot of white evangelicals who follow her are, I think, impressed by her stand on sexuality, but not so impressed on her political ideals. And so they tend to come down on her. The same person would come down on her because of her dislike for Trump, but would congratulate her or support her for her sexual stance.
So what exactly do you think her political or race positions are that she thinks that white evangelicals will take exception with?
She's been open about her issues with Trump. She's been open about things like white oppression or white fragility, white supremacy, I believe.
So would you say maybe she's like critical theory sympathetic?
I think she may be. Again, I don't know a ton about her.
Yeah.
I do think that she possibly is sympathetic towards CRT. I don't know if she's like all the way in. But from a few things I've seen, and like I said, I just found out about who she is probably in the last year and a half. She doesn't really have the greatest of likes for President Trump. And she's vocal about that. But I also think she's vocal about a lot of things. So for her, it's like, why are you like rooting me on over here? But then as soon as I come over here and say something, you want to like pause the brakes and you don't have nothing to say. It's like, can you not accept all of me where I am? But it's just more of like, no, we'll root for you and cheer you on over here. But as soon as you come over here, then no. And, I kind of feel like I understand where she's coming from. It's like, well, can we just be friends? Like, and I'm not sure, I guess, what people have said, but I guess I imagine that the same people are like, yes, 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 yay for you. And then shunning her or talking bad about her when she posts something else.
So the crazy Twitter universe aside, and how caustic and crazy some people's comments can be on there, like, help me understand though, because to me it's just natural that some people are going to agree with me on some issues, other people are going to disagree with me on other issues. I mean, should we just talk about the rapture? Like, people will be writing to me about how much they disagree with me, but that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. It's just a reality. So why would she think that people would agree with her on every issue?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure why there's a need for like complete agreement, because I think people are free to disagree or to agree accordingly. There's a lot of things that we don't agree about, or
Sure.
that just whatever. But there are a lot of things that we do agree about, and we can talk about both of those things and move forward from that place. To me, and I think maybe you brought it up, the idea of maybe feeling like her voice is being used.
Well, that's what I was hoping you would bring up is that part of it?
I was gonna bring it up, but I kind of forgot about how
we had
were
this whole
talking about it.
conversation. We had the segment kind of planned. And
Yeah.
I'm giving her the cues, but she's not.
Look, folks, I'm only human. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So go ahead, set that up for me.
So what do you see is happening here? Like, why would she expect people to agree with her on every issue? That was the setup I was coming up with.
Yeah, no, not that
that's
one.
not that setup.
Not that
All
one.
right.
Not that one. Not that one. The use her voice. That one.
All right, use her voice.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that
See, take two.
So do you think that at all, because she is often platformed at predominantly white evangelical conference venues, churches, do you think that, because I've seen this, a little bit of this dynamic with you too, where white people can have a tendency to want to use your voice as a cover story for their own kind of issues. And I don't know how to say, I don't need to say it tactfully, but there are some situations that you and I have been in where I'm like, I'm kind of picking up on a vibe here that maybe they want to use you because of your race.
Yeah, and so I don't disagree that that could possibly be happening. I guess what I also make up is that she's invited to conferences and is told you need to talk on this and don't talk on that. Like they want her for this, but not for the other thing. And she's a whole person.
Got it.
Now, does that mean that you can't disagree with her? No. But at some point, is it using her just to bring her in for, you know, this one thing? I don't know. I don't know that, you know, you being an expert in something like, I don't know, creation, you know, you being an expert in creation, but we disagree on the rapture, that I couldn't have you come in and talk about creation because you're an expert in creation.
Yeah.
We disagree on the rapture. Don't talk about the rapture. I didn't ask you to talk about the rapture.
And I've been in those
know?
situations where I've had to go speak somewhere and they tell me ahead of time, you can speak on this, do not speak on this. And if a question comes up, I just defer to the pastor or whoever's in charge of the event, you know, like, hey, that's a great question.
Read the fine print of this bulletin, please. It says don't talk about that.
Yeah, well, but it does happen. And when you're a guest speaker at a venue, sometimes if you're doing an open Q&A, especially, people will bring up topics that you're like, oh, this is kind of controversial. I don't know how the pastor feels about this. I'm just going to defer to. And sometimes I'll handle it by saying, well, in your denomination, this is how they would answer that question.
Now, what I think she could be hinting at is the fact that as a Black woman, people will invite her to speak places because of her position, because of, in addition to her views on homosexuality, she's also Black. So then you got the intercultural, interracial things.
It helps your diversity quotient.
Yes. You know, and so at that point, it's like, well, are you using me for my skin tone? And that's kind of what you were talking about, having someone approach us about something. And it's like, well, actually, you really only want her because of this. Like, she speaks out against CRT, which a lot of Black people don't do.
Yeah.
One. And two, she's Black. So, you know, but what else?
Yeah.
You know, and if that's the case, just say that. Like, you know, we really want you because you're Black. It's okay. Just say it.
So there was a couple of responses here. If we could go back to the tweet and scroll down to Allie Beth Stuckey really quick. She's a popular podcaster, and she's white. She's a millennial. She's probably in her early 30s, I think. She has a huge following. She says, is expressing disagreement with your politics the same as asking you to shuck and jive?
Oh, she says shuck and jive.
Well, because it's in the tweet, and I don't know where that part of
it's
it
in
went.
What tweet?
I know. Maybe go back.
See, because that now I feel like I'm missing.
Go
I'm
to
missing
show this
pieces.
thread. Okay, you can scroll down. See, there was more. I love your testimony, but I'm disappointed comments come out. It's been clear to me that they will buy your books, retweet your stuff, and praise you until the sun turns blue, as long as you stay within their prescribed narrative. But my legs ain't made for shucking and jiving.
Okay, see, you only told me about part of the tweet.
Well,
now I understand.
That's what I was looking for
Yes.
when I had him scroll down before.
Now I understand. So yeah, she is basically saying, like, white people will praise you and love you until you tell them the truth.
About race.
About race, about politics, about oppression, about whatever. Yeah.
Or at least her opinion about the truth.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yes, you would say that, but in a critical theory kind of way.
Exactly.
Then it's redefined.
Yeah.
So, yes,
right.
that's what she's saying. My legs ain't made. My legs, like, her stand is that I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not here to shuck and jive. I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm here to bring the truth.
I'm going to speak truth to power.
Yes.
All right, so go back on that. Go on that little arrow there, Bob.
On the arrow, okay?
Yeah, and then go scroll down to Allie Beth. There we go. Is expressing disagreement with your politics the same as asking you to shuck and jive? I think that's a sincere question.
Now I understand. I thought she was just coming out of nowhere.
For the people who agree with your politics but disagree with your stance on sexuality. And then she invites her on her podcast. Allie Beth, invite us on your podcast. We'd love to be on your podcast. So that's Allie Beth Stuckey's take. Let's go over to Sam Say, who was our guest last week. He also had a take that I sent to Bob. Here's Sam's take on Jackie Hill Perry's tweet. That's all right. There it is. Perhaps it's because your views on sexuality are biblical, but your views on politics and race aren't biblical.
Well, there's that one time.
So Sam's not exactly a critical race theory guy. I'm sure you'll agree that the only person whose followers should agree with 100% of the time is Jesus Christ. He's always trustworthy on sexuality, politics, and race. You know, Sam's pretty fearless on Twitter. He just kind of calls a thing a thing.
He does.
So
He does.
So I think it's just important to try to understand what I was really hoping you could do here is just give us some insight into the Black community about, just different perspectives. That there's different takes even within the Black community. Sam has a different way of seeing race and politics than Jackie Hill Perry.
Yes, I'm sorry, I missed it. I missed it. You guys. Oh my goodness. No, I do. I think that is it's true. But that's across the board. Everyone is gonna have a different take. Now, I think within our community there is this strong idea of tribalism.
Yes.
But one of the things that we've talked about before and have recorded on other videos is the idea of breaking free from the tribalism and what happens when you do break free from tribalism.
What is
tribalism? Is just the group thought process, the group mentality, staying within that. And
so
if you're
Black,
not,
you should think this way.
You should think this way
about race and politics. And if you don't,
then you're kind of shunned or out of the tribe. Yes. And it can, but not everyone thinks that way. Right. Not everyone subscribes to the tribal mindset. Not everyone, participates in that, has been raised like that.
But that's a critical feature of critical theory. Tribalism is kind of an adjunct to that.
Well, I think critical theory builds its own form of tribalism.
Okay. So
if you're not thinking this way, then you are part of the oppressor category. You are, not woke. You're blind to the reality. So I think that it itself, by itself, has its own tribal component.
Okay.
Yes. My goodness, I was not picking up on the cues today, people. I was just off in left field. I'm sorry. I apologize.
We had that segment down in the rehearsal. All right. Okay. Are you ready to move on to the next topic?
Susanna says, I'm a white Christian woman and not a Trump supporter. So I do get flack as though supporting Trump equals being a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's hard too. When people's, I guess, religious affiliation gets mixed up with their
race.
Their race or politics and things like that. It's just hard. All Black people should be Democrats. I don't think so, but that doesn't mean that we should be Republican either. It just, where do you land? And understanding too that you don't have to choose something based on your race, nor should you really. What are the convictions, the moral convictions that Scripture offers? That's where you should find your allegiance.
Susanna's comment there about Trump, YouTube flagged that. I had to manually approve it.
Oh.
It put it in the bin.
Oh.
It was as an offensive comment.
Well, there's that.
You got a comment on Facebook.
Nancy Adams says, "Oh, Monique, welcome to Quarantine Brain. Girl, the struggle is real.
Got
It
that
is
right.
so real."
All right, there's a comment on Facebook.
Facebook.
Oh, Diane says we're look cute. We have matching denim jackets. Yeah, we.
I had a wardrobe malfunction, so I had to put on a jacket, y'all. Let's keep it real. Rebecca Lynn. Would she feel or say the same about evangelicals who support Trump and are not white? I'm just questioning whether her issue is with Trump supporters in general or just white Trump supporters, and why classify that they're evangelicals, because not all Trump supporters, whatever their race, are evangelical. And I'm honestly wondering. Girl, I'm honestly wondering too. Don't play no games. Hi, Amanda Burke. So back to the question, Rebecca Lynn. I think that her problem would be with anyone who does not lean toward her identity politics. So she can classify white evangelicals because she usually speaks at white evangelical conferences. And I feel like she probably has a very large white evangelical following. Now, if she were to hear me, she would say that I am not woke, that I am in my pre-encounter phase, that I am not really Black. There would be probably a whole lot of other things that could, come in to play with a lot of this. So yeah, I think that it probably lies more in line with identity politics, with critical theory, critical race theory, more so than the color of a person's skin. Because you can have woke white people, and woke white people would affirm, her stand politically about race and politics and things like that. Now, a lot of woke white people would not support her thought process on sexuality.
Well, that's
so where
the
does
thing.
that lead
Yeah,
you?
because a lot of woke people are pro-gay.
Yeah.
So they would disagree with her on that issue. I wonder if she calls them out in the same way.
I don't know. I also wonder, and I feel like among Christians who hold to CRT, sex and all of that is very different as a sin than, not being woke, or race or oppression and all that. So, who knows? I don't know.
Jackie Hill Perry, come on our show.
Yeah, there it is.
We would love to talk to you some more.
Yes.
Find out more about your views. All right, you ready? Topic number 2.
There we go.
All
Number
right.
2.
Since we're on the topic of social justice anyways, sort of. There is a deepening divide in our country, I think, about getting back to work in the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that you and I have been noticing 2 very different things on social media. We were talking yesterday at lunch. We were sitting there eating our food and talking about very different approaches happening in our social media feeds to respond to the economic challenges that we're having. Like what I'm seeing on my social media feed is a lot of people wanting to get back to work, reopen businesses, reopen small businesses, frustrated small business owners. The protests started yesterday here in California because the federal orders for all the quarantine issues ran out. But our governor still has us on a pretty strict quarantine. In fact, we have some video footage that was donated to the show from Sacramento yesterday. And that's okay. We're going to just let that play in the background there. So this was up at the Capitol building. The CHP was out in force, and there was a lot of protesters out there, a lot of small business owners, a lot of people just wanting to reopen their businesses. And these are just regular people, they're not paid actors. They really want to have their businesses opened. And it was mostly peaceful. There was a few little scuffles, but mostly peaceful. People just wanting to reopen their businesses. So that's the kind of point of view that I'm getting, is all of these businesses see themselves as essential because the income that they derive from their small businesses is essential to their family. And they want to open up their businesses and pay their employees so their employees can provide for their families. That's the kind of the point of view that I'm getting. But tell us what you're seeing in your social media feed.
I see a lot of stay home, don't spread, don't contaminate. What about your, loved ones? Especially, well, one of the things that I think is a common thread, especially recently,
That's
is
enough with the video, Bob. You can stop it.
is the idea. I was trying to read his sign.
Oh, he said, "Is a black educated doctor."
Oh, who supports an intelligent reopen? Yes. See, and that's it. It's like, what is an intelligent reopen? Like, I don't think we can just be willy nilly and everybody just go back all at once. Like, no, let's use our brains here. But I was going for something. I was going for it.
What are you seeing in your social media feed?
The idea that
Stay home, don't go back to work.
Well, stay home, don't go back to work, but that it is the middle class and the rich who really want the poor to go back to work, because that's the labor. They're really wanting to go back, or wanting people to reopen on the backs of the poor. So the poor who have, very poor health conditions, or no health insurance, low income, all of these things factor into COVID-19 by itself. And now we want to open up and put these people at risk. How can we responsibly reopen and not do that on the backs of our poor neighbors? There
was an article that you sent me in Politico that kind of summarized that point of view. I thought the headline was quite startling. Admit it, you're willing to let people die to end the shutdown. So because small business people want to get us back to work, the point of view here is that we want people to die. I mean, that seems so extreme, but
it does. I think it seems extreme.
Can you scroll down a little bit? There's a great quote I want to read.
It's true. Like, if we're clear, we understand that some people will die. Right there.
So to my ear, he was saying, this is what they hear people saying. People that, like the people I'm seeing in my social media feed. Yes, some people are going to die who wouldn't if I keep in a full lockdown in place. I hope not too many or too fast, but keeping the risk of death as low as possible imposes other costs that are too high. And my job is to balance competing goals.
And he is talking about the governor of Colorado, who I believe it's the governor, not the mayor, right. The governor, who decided to allow his state to reopen partially or something like that.
Yeah.
And, he was interviewed and that's what he said. And I agree, like, people are going to die. And so, yes, if we want to put it that bluntly, then we just have to put it that bluntly. It's not going to be nice. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people want it to sound like, oh, no, we don't. We have to at some point accept the fact that this illness is going to take lives. And no, we don't want it to take lives. We don't want it to kill anyone. And yet people have died. So how can we be responsible with those who are alive and make sure that the people who are still here also have a way to provide for their families, have a way to, work, or have a way to eat, go to school, or, is it all about keeping everyone alive? But if we keep everyone alive at the risk of the economy, at the risk of mortgages and things like that, what will we have left? So I think it is about being able to balance the competing need.
Yeah, there certainly are competing needs. And I think that's the difficulty. It just really caught me off guard that people were framing it in such a way as like, well, if you want me to go back to work, you're basically telling me to die. Oh. It's like, that's so extreme. But that seems to be the kind of the social justice angle on this conversation.
I agree with that.
You agree with that position, or you agree that that's a fair characterization?
I agree that that's a fair characterization.
Okay. All right.
The where I found this article, because I found it scrolling through Facebook, the person who posted, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I understand their point of view. I understand their take on, what they believe America should do. So it didn't really surprise me. I was like, of course you're going to see it like that. I don't know that I'm saying like, oh, people need to die. I want people to die. Am I willing to take very calculated risks? Yes, at some point we do need to take very calculated risks because we need to eat.
But everything's a risk.
Everything.
Driving on the freeway is a risk at 75 miles an hour.
Yes. going to the grocery store can be a risk. Nobody expected to be shot up, when they went into the bank. Sorry, I don't even know why I thought about this, but that, like, the whole North Hollywood shooting, like, years and years ago. But, like, these are things that people don't think about, but they're calculated risks.
Yeah.
I know why I was thinking about that, because I read another article about how America will change after, how America has changed after such big crises. And so after the Great Depression, after World War II, after September 11th, but I lived in North Hollywood during that whole North Hollywood shootout back when I was like a teenager. And from that day, like from that reopening of the bank, banks then put that glass in front of the teller. Mm. There was no glass between you and the teller before then. So it's like we have to take risks, and we'll learn and we'll grow from those risks. But if we don't take risks, then we'll never be able to move forward. And with this crisis, if we don't move forward, more people are going to die.
Well, because the suicide rates are going to go up, people's mental health is suffering. I mean, there's a lot of complicating factors. This is a really complicated situation. We're already looking at 25% unemployment rates nationally. Hopefully some of those people will go back to work, but not all of them are going to go back. There's going to be some things like the local business, the family-owned business, like a mile from us, it's a laser tag business. I know it's owned by a Christian family. The husband plays the guitar at a local church on a worship band. They're just trying to feed their family, and they got a lot of teenagers working there. They're shutting down completely because the quarantine has gone on so long. There's no end in sight. The governor hasn't said when we can reopen safely, and they're an entertainment business, so they're going to be at the last phase. They can't keep paying their mortgage and paying their employees with no income coming in. These are not rich people. These are people just like our family. And now all of those people are out of work. And so it really is like shocking to me that people would say, well, you just want us to die. Well, how about, like, is there some middle position that we can arrive at so we can keep people's jobs and not have 40% unemployment?
No, I agree with that. I also wonder how much of it is clickbait, wanting people to click on it because of the title. And things like, anti-abortion, like you're either pro-life or you're pro-abortion,
pro-choice,
or pro-choice. Like those names and titles that just kind of make you out to be the uber bad guy when it's.
That's just some things I've seen on social media. Yeah, they're like, well, if you want people to go back to work, you're just for death. You just want people to die.
Yes.
It's like, maybe I want people to work.
The same person who posted this, and I'm just outing myself if they watching. The same person who posted this posted another Facebook post, and it said, "You can't claim to be pro-life if you want people to go back to work." And I was like, huh? Like, what about the dignity of work? Like, what about the biblical concept of the dignity of work?
Yeah.
What about the dignity, value, and worth that each person has? And, the desire to feed your family.
That's actually the topic of my live stream on Monday from my Facebook is work and the importance of work and theology of work. Let's go to some comments here. Kimba's joining us. Hey, Kimba. She says, I think people can't buy food and pay for mortgages or rent. If they were going to make people stop working, then they should have stopped the mortgage companies and banks from taking payments and working. That's the thing is, like, people are saying, well, we're going to stop rent payments, but those landlords still have to pay their bills. Mm-hmm. That can't go on forever.
And well, here's the thing. Rent payments are suspended. There's a difference between being suspended and being stopped.
Yeah.
Is
that rent's still going to be due?
It's going to be due, and it's going to be due. Like, if they give you a 3-month suspension, which I think is what they did in California, a 3-month suspension where there's no evictions, things like that, and they can possibly carry that out further. But when the 3 months is up, on day 1 of month 4, you better have all your money. Because it's not
That's going to be a big check.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, you can pay it back in incremental payments or no.
Because that landlord has had to pay. Mm-hmm. that whole time. Those banks haven't suspended those.
Yes, they have.
Oh, they have?
Yes, so they can't.
Because that's Kimba's comment. Is
here anyway. I don't know if Kimba's here, but here
in California,
yes, they're not supposed to come after you. Like everybody's supposed to be on this 3-month halt, and you can approach your mortgage lender and say, "Hey, COVID-19 has done this." So student loans, mortgages, rent, utilities. You can't have your lights turned off or your gas turned off, your water. Like all of that is supposed to be halted in this time.
Having food is life, Susanna says. That's true. Okay. Some more comments on Facebook. Okay,
Kimba
cool.
said, "Yep, that's right, Mo. They did the same thing last time."
All right.
The last time when?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I wasn't old enough for that part. I don't know. Let's see. Rebecca Lynn. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I think we're talking about Jackie Hill Perry.
Yes. It makes me sad to hear a sister in Christ feels this way. Galatians 3:28. I probably need to look that up. And perhaps she has had experiences that have validated those feelings, which is just as sad. 80,000 people died last winter from the flu. Okay, wait, I'll read that.
Now we're changing topics.
Yes. I think, Rebecca Lynn, I think that that's true. She probably has had experiences that have validated her stance, or kind of a confirmation bias even. Like, she kind of holds this belief, and then something happens and it just continues to stir that belief or reaffirm that belief. But for a long time, Black voices have been used. Like, people are like, "Oh, you should say this," or "Oh, can you say that?"
Well, tell us about that, because you had some really interesting examples of that.
Can you help me with those examples? I promise you, it's y'all, my brain, it's
PTSD brain.
It does not remember things all the time. I'm serious. We family here, y'all. Go ahead.
I don't know if I can remember them. That was 3 or 4 days ago. But because I'd never heard them before. There was like some examples you were telling me of how they would have Black people say certain things or put forth certain ideas. Can you say this? You had some really good examples.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I've never heard that before.
But I think even recently with some of the things that we're doing with CRT, I've been approached to, like, "Oh, we can do this if, maybe you come in and talk about that."
Yeah.
Our voice isn't meant to always be the explainer voice. Our voice isn't meant to always help push forward someone else's agenda. We want to be acknowledged and appreciated because we are people with dignity, value, and worth.
Yeah.
But what I've seen, and I will try very hard, I'm sorry, to think about the examples that I brought up the other day. But I do believe that there has been in our country a sense of, say this, don't say that, kind of thing.
So there's some sensitivity there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if there's any more.
Now, wait, I want to go back to Rebecca Lynn's second comment. She said, 80,000 people have died last winter from the flu per the CDC. I think Americans just aren't used to seeing or hearing about death because 1% or even close to 2% mortality rate is extremely low compared to other diseases. A greater danger is a country facing economic collapse. I agree.
All right. Our friend Amanda says people have to be careful about putting payments off because they still have to owe them on the back end.
Yes.
She's our
this is real.
Financial planner. In the house. When this is over, I think we will see a lot of foreclosures. That's what I'm wondering about.
Yes.
Is evictions and foreclosures.
Yes. Oh, I think homelessness is going to go up, way up, and it's going to look different. So a lot of people right now are all big on this homeless thing. And I've worked in homelessness for a very long time. But what you see a lot of is what we call chronically homeless. So the person pushing the cart, the person on drugs, sleeping under the bus bench, whatever, those are the chronically homeless. What you see less of, but is still a big problem, are the working poor, the people who look like me. They get up and go to work every day, but they're sleeping in their car, or they're couch surfing, going from house to house, sleeping with friends and things like that. I think that number is going to skyrocket. I think that because people have lost their jobs, because, they did take that 3-month wait on the rent because they couldn't pay, and now rent is due and now they're evicted, you're going to see a big shift in in all of this, and especially in homelessness. Food pantries are essential right now, but so is like organizations like the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, case managers, making sure that people are getting into shelters. But shelters are full, especially in Los Angeles. You know, we only have so many shelter beds a night, and they're literally counted per night. And so if those shelter beds are full, where are people supposed to go?
Yeah, it's good.
You'll see a lot of doubling up in households of, you know, multiple families. And we see this now, multiple families living in a single dwelling home.
So those are some things for pastors to be thinking about. And I think we need to see more coalitions of pastors, more collaborating in communities among churches for the common good of what we can do there.
Yeah.
A little bit more there.
Yeah.
And big government stepping in to save the day. Tears. Yes. That's the only thing to say is tears.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to increase exponentially, Amanda says. Yeah, I think you're right about that. So let's go back to YouTube comments. Kimba says the time she was talking about before was the 2008 downturn. So.
Yeah. That was.
All right. You ready to go on to the next topic?
Yes.
All right, so I'm about to take a dive in the ditch. Everyone's going to be upset with me in a few minutes. So there was an article in Relevant Magazine this week, not really a magazine that I follow, but I did see a few posts on this in my social media feed this week.
What were you doing with the Relevant?
Yeah. Thanks to my friend Anastasia for posting this. She had some good comments. So here's the article. Why are so many single women leaving the church?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Very interesting article. All right. This is live television, people.
Sorry.
All right. So go back to it. All right. So we're going to scroll down and hit a few highlights because this is a very interesting piece. The author talks about going to a panel discussion at a conference called Faith and Feminism, which featured a panel of women from different faith backgrounds talking about how they merged their religious beliefs with their feminist convictions. And then one of the questioners at the panel said, I'm so tired of fighting Christian church leaders to be treated equally, but I don't want to leave the church. So what do I do? How do I stay? This was the big question. And they say that, you know, single women in the UK, for example, are the group most likely to leave Christianity. In the U.S., the numbers tell a similar story. And they make this statement. There is a distinction between leaving the church and leaving Christianity. And then they go on to give some reasons for why these women are leaving. And I'm going to come back to that statement, but I really don't want to forget about that, of the difference between leaving church and leaving Christianity. But here's some of the reasons. We'll just scroll through these really quick. About singlehood. The church's emphasis on marriage as God's design for humanity. And women struggle to find a suitable spouse in the church. The gender ratio is not in their favor. So do they hold out for a Christian husband? Do they date outside the church? This is a big conundrum for single women. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Another reason that was given is that it's very intimidating. Single women often don't feel accepted in their churches. They say the Christian ideal for a woman is to be gentle, easygoing, and submissive. If a woman doesn't fit into that description, they feel even more out of place. They're being told to tone it down, you know, strong personalities. All right, keep going. So there's another reasons they leave. And another reason they leave is sex problems. Where do I put my sexuality if I'm not having sex? Age is a major factor. As you get older, if you're a single woman, it feels harder to fit in as well. All right. Because so many of the messages about intimacy are aimed at married couples. Keep going. And single women are tired of feeling invisible in their local churches. So those were the reasons. Now I got all manner of issues with this. But let me hear your take first.
Oh, I don't know that I disagree a lot with it.
I know.
I don't. I know that you brought up that, and I don't want to steal your thunder. But
We'll talk about what you agree with specifically. You're a single woman.
I am. I agree. I think that it's difficult to be single in church. Like you want to join a singles group and they put you with the college kids. Nothing wrong with college kids, but I am not a college student. Like my last group, I had someone ask me to help them write their CV. It was so cute. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if I'm looking to be a mentor, then let me be a mentor. That's not what I'm looking for. So there was that. But then there's also this assumption, it feels like a lot of times that, we don't put single people, especially single women or whatever, in married cells or married small groups. Well, why not? Like, I'm a human, I'm not after your husband, he's taken. So why, like, what is the idea behind keeping single people together? And unfortunately, single people are usually in their early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
Historically, I feel like, or the idea that a lot of the programming in church is for families, or it's for kids, youth, college kids, whatever. They even have divorce groups. You know what I mean? But then when you hit over a certain age, there's really not a group for you to fit into. And it's like, well, no, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I still love Jesus and I really want to, be connected to my faith. But can we figure out how we can do that responsibly?
Mm-hmm. So,
or in a way, I guess that feels like I can also be connected to the larger body.
Yeah.
Because right now it's that I go to church on a Sunday, but unless I'm a youth, a child,
you feel like
college student.
You feel like there's really nobody ministering to you specifically.
Well, there's really no place to even sit. Like, unless I want to go and hang out with the unmarrieds, who are all in their 20s.
Uh-huh.
Which, again, nothing wrong with being in your 20s. I'm just not in that stage of life.
Right.
Or what? Because they don't put you traditionally in married small groups.
So what is your thought about the pressure, the perceived pressure that they were talking about in the article, that the church is for married people? That
it is. I kind of feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could be that I'm looking at it through tainted eyes because I'm not married. But y'all, people be booed up in church and, but that's
booed. I don't know what that is.
Like, let me snuggle in church, or like one of the last times we were at our church, like people be rubbing, you gotta rub on their back and they small, the small of their back and all that. I'm like, that's great, but not everybody get to snuggle up next to them biceps and triceps. You know what I mean? Like, church is, when the pastor gives a message, he's generally not like, oh, this message today is only for the singles, because they have special needs too. It's about the intimacy in a marriage. Oh, husbands, you should love your wife like Christ loves the church. Wives, you should be submissive. Oh, what the hell? What about this? Like, who? So what? Like, I'm just trying to figure out where do I fit in this?
So again, your issue is that nobody's messaging to you, ministering to you. Where do you fit in?
I don't even know that it's about like, oh, me, but there is a gap. Like, can we just acknowledge the gap?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I don't think you would feel that way, or I don't think married people would, for those people who are like, oh, so your issue is that nobody's talking to you or ministering to you. I think that married people would have a sense of issue if the pastor was only talking to single people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't want it to be like, oh, I have this grand issue. I just think that where there's a gap, people tend to notice it if they fit into the gap.
Yeah. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer that a church have a singles ministry for people in their 30s and 40s? Or would you prefer that they put you in a small group with married couples? You as a single person. I want you to speak right now for all single people. No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah, thanks.
But I think
that depends on the person.
Okay.
You know, like
But in a
sometimes
small-
it's cool. Sometimes it's cool to sit and talk to other people
Sure.
who are single too.
I'm just
and
asking
talking
your
about
preference.
that life. I honestly, I think I could go either way.
Oh, okay.
I think there are some days when I get tired of being around married people. Like I just do. I'm like here it is. Yeah. But you know, and that's real. Like, sorry, it just is. And we've had this conversation before too. Married people always gotta talk about this or gotta talk about that. Or, oh, you know what they did? Like, you know, it just is what it is. Some days I would like to sit and be around my single people. But then some days it's cool. And like there's so much I can still glean and learn from married
Sure.
couples for my own future and things that they can glean from me.
So do you think that there's warrant for leaving the church over this issue? Because that's really what the article is about, is, you know, many single women are in a very high likelihood category to leave the church. This is a frequent reason why women leave the church. Do you think that that's warranted?
I do. I feel like if you are in a congregation now
are we talking
you
about
have
leaving-
to you have
leaving
to,
a local church
That's
or
what I'm
the-
saying.
okay.
You can't talk about leaving your faith, leaving Jesus. Nobody got time to leave Jesus. But if you're at a faith community where you feel completely out of place and like there's no room for you to slot in anywhere. Like when I was in South Africa, that's how I felt when I would go to church and I left. After 2 years, I was like, you know what? Or 3 years actually. After 3 years, I was like, this isn't for me. Like I can't roll with my 22-year-old friend anymore. Like it isn't for me. And even after conversations, it was like, well, we really feel like you fit best here. Like this is where, you know, because you guys are all in a similar stage of life. Well, my life is more than my singleness.
So for you, leaving a local church, but you would go find another church. You wouldn't just leave institutional Christianity.
Yeah, from there I went and I joined a house church. And
Okay.
I've never been a part of a house church until then, and my heart has always been very soft for the house church. And so it was a completely different experience. And in that there was no children's program. Everybody was just all up together. And I love that model. I love the fact that everybody was together. These married people over here, these single people, and we all came together and kind of did life.
Yeah. I think that's a really good solution. I think I just take issue with the article because there was no thought in the article about staying in a church because what they teach is true. Like there was no reasons given of I'm leaving the faith because I no longer believe Jesus is the Son of God, or because I believe that the church is apostate and they haven't preserved the faith once for all given to the saints. I mean, none of the reasons given in the article were anything based on truth or anything objective. It was just, this is my subjective personal experience, and so I'm going to leave the local church, possibly even the institutional church as an institution. And I think that is problematic for me because I see a pattern of these kinds of conversations that constantly are framed in such a way that the thought that the reasons that are put forward are completely subjective. They're based on people's feelings and their emotions. They're not based on truth. And that's troubling to me. I'm not sure that those are necessarily valid reasons for leaving the church as a whole. Now, if you want to change local churches, that makes a little more sense to me. But the thought here, like, I don't know where the line was, but there was a line in the article about like women just, they're sexual people, they want to have sex, the church sort of frowns upon sex, so they leave.
Oh, I didn't take that in the article to be like that. And I actually have that, like that part pulled up because I wanted to talk about that. It says, where is it?
Where do I put my sexuality? Go back down.
Yeah, where do I put my sexuality? If I'm not having sex, one woman asked me, as a single woman, we aren't even allowed to talk about our sexuality, another said. Christian leaders assume that our sexuality is like a faucet that you only turn on when you're married. I think there's some truth to that. Like, if you're in church and you having sex, then that's a whole different conversation. But if you are trying to remain chaste and you're an older Christian woman, why is it that we can't even say the word sex in church? Why is there no, that can only be something that is talked about among married people? Like, I don't know, but the last time I checked, I was still human. But we have this way of being in church where it's like, ooh, don't say that, or don't say that in mixed company. What, you don't think my brother in church also is human? Like, I'm not sure when we, and I'm not talking about having risque conversations, but at what point did we become so mute on the idea of sex that we don't talk about it at all? And by not talking about it at all, we set our kids up for failure even, or we set the adult next to us up for failure because no one is wanting to talk about their struggles. So now I'm struggling alone, and you know what? I'm gonna go and have sex.
Well, that's 100 decisions. It is 100
decisions.
Oops. Come on now.
It's 100 decisions, but it also starts with the idea that people struggle and we don't talk about it.
All right. Let's go to the
And I mean, I could be
comments.
completely off base here.
Let's go to
I just
YouTube.
think that there's a lot that the church doesn't talk about, and sex is one of those things.
All right, Susanna says, I can totally relate. I became a single mom when my son was only 2.5 years old, so I felt out of place. All activities are divided by marital status or age. I go now to small churches where all activities are together. Some evangelical churches even seem to teach that marriage is all that, as though we don't exist.
You made a comment like a couple months ago, probably, and I was talking about my singleness, and you were like, it's abnormal.
Yes, being single is abnormal.
Now, where do you find that biblically? Like, I don't know that.
Because the man and the woman were created in the garden.
Yes.
And they were created to multiply and fill the earth,
Yes.
to co-rule and reign together.
Okay, but if you feel that that's abnormal, do you not think that people don't pick up that vibe?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But then why not talk about it? People literally think that people who are single are abnormal. Like, why aren't we talking about this?
Well,
why
I don't
are
know
we
if
talking
abnormal
about
is the right word, but it's unnatural. It's an unnatural way of being.
Why are we not talking about it? Why is the church so silent on the idea that people that are supposed to do things that are natural are doing something unnatural and yet still human? We've taken a position as a church, as a people, and we're failing. I'm sorry, but we're failing other Christians.
I think that the message about it being unnatural is sort of implied. It's sort of maybe what you're picking up on with all of the family-centric messages and activities. So it's sort of their kind of backhanded way of saying this is what's natural. But I think that
But if you're saying that it's unnatural, what are you then saying about God's plan for my life?
no, you didn't let me finish.
Go ahead. Sorry.
She does this to me all the time. So I think that there's a way of saying it generally that men and women are created for each other. Mm-hmm. But then for us as individuals, I think that's the blessing of the Great Commission, mm-hmm. and Jesus calling us as individuals into that women and men can partner together to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. And that becomes our primary identity, our identity in the Great Commission, to bring the gospel everywhere we go. And that is even more fundamental than my role as a wife and a mother, because my role as a mother in raising my children is somewhat of a temporary station. I mean, yes, technically I'm always my children's mother, but what are you doing?
Sorry, I don't know what happened. I had to scratch my leg. Sorry. Sorry.
But
oopsies.
But my role as a mother, at some point I stopped raising my children. Then I'm only in their life mostly as
I can feel it. Go ahead. Keep going.
I think I'm done.
No, you're not. Like, it's so, sorry, I cry when I get frustrated. It's so easy for people who are married to be like, oh, da 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 da, it's unnatural. Well, if it's unnatural, then offer a remedy, but don't say it's unnatural and then give a complaint. It's
Sure.
unnatural and they shouldn't complain because they're leaving for an untruth. What,
I think your
what are
concerns
you
are-
doing? What is the church doing
No, I
to
think you're-
offer something helpful and holistic to people who are single?
I think you're raising really important and valuable questions. And I don't mean to diminish that. I think that the unnatural state is part of what makes it so hard. And I think that it speaks to the difficulty. And I think it also speaks to the need and the necessity for more conversation around this issue.
I think that, yes, it does speak to the need and necessity for more conversation around this issue, but it also speaks to the need for married people to look around for those who are single. Be more compassionate.
Sure.
Like, instead of maybe saying it's unnatural, inquire of the person who is single. How do you feel about this? Like, what's going on for me? Because not a lot of people want it. Some people don't want to be married. And that's okay.
Sure.
Some people do, and then we go and we find that there's no place for us.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, and I feel like I could go on, but it doesn't. You've been married a long time.
Yeah.
You have no idea what it's like, and I love you, and it's not a slam against you, but you really have no idea how to really speak into this space or the pain that can be brought up by it. And this is completely different than, what we had planned to talk about. I just think that not you, but maybe people out, who watch us need to also understand, like, there's a sensitive spot in church for people who, not just single people who can't have babies. Like, I had a friend who would go to church back in South Africa, and she couldn't have kids. And once a month, they always did the baby dedications. And it was so hard for her to have to sit there and endure the baby dedications. But then people who were mothers or people who didn't want kids or people who weren't in that season of life had no way to empathize with her, to really sympathize or really understand. Sure. And so there's just sensitive places in church. And when we come with, our thoughts about something, but have no real idea because we aren't in that phase, it can be hurtful. And so we have to look around. How can we best love our neighbor? And looking around and saying, you know what, this girl always, or this guy always comes to church and he's single. Maybe his wife works on Sundays. Who knows? But inquire, become inquisitive. I wonder what it's like for this girl or this, this family who doesn't have kids to sit through the baby dedication, once a month. Or, or I wonder what it's like for this elderly, or not even elderly, but this empty nest couple who is, watching graduations every year. What's that like for people? But we don't do that. We kind of stick people in their categories and we say, this is where you belong. So when you're an empty nester, you'll go to this category. And then when you're this, you'll go to that category. And then when you're, in your 60s, you'll go to the silver-haired group or whatever. And I just think that if we maybe stop putting people in such groups and had more genuine grouping, like all of us as one, maybe we would see other things. Maybe that place of sensitivity would be filled because we are truly being one instead of being this fragmented body, because we're fragmented even when we're in our churches. Anyway, that's my thoughts, and I'm done.
All right. Why don't you read the comments?
Well, no, I can't because I'm all emotional.
There's some good comments there.
Well, go ahead and read them because I'm still a mess.
Okay. Cynthia says the church is not supposed to be a club. It's about worshiping God with other believers. Kimba says, where is it that it says if you have a gift for being single, it's good because of a woman's married, she serves her husband? I think it's in 1 Corinthians, but that's in the context of because of persecution, that there's an advantage to being single because of hard times in the church. And so Paul makes some statements about like it's better to stay as you are if you're single. And that's going back to my point is I really think that our status before the Lord and the Great Commission supersedes our identity as wife and mother, but that's probably beside the point. All right.
Well, I agree that our status as Christians, our status as children of God supersedes all that. And even with things like coronavirus or persecution, like, would I rather have kids? Like, I couldn't imagine having small kids right now or, children at all right now, or having to traverse life wondering, how do I do this and protect my child and, all of those things. And yet that doesn't mean that I also wouldn't like that.
Sure.
I think it's a both and kind of thing. But I can understand what Paul is saying. Like, in persecution of the church, it's better that you are single, because then you don't have all these other people to worry about.
Yeah. Well, and then you can be focused on the ministry. And I do think that singleness is hard because, there's a verse about celibacy being a gift. And I think that people don't understand what that word is there, is that it's the gift, like a gift of the Spirit. It's something that God gives you. So if you're in a single position and you don't have the gift of celibacy, I think that puts people in a very hard position. So
There's a lot of comments
On Facebook. Yeah, I'm trying to read
okay,
through them.
all right, let's go to Facebook.
Amanda says, let me start with Rebecca Lynn. We had to leave our church of almost 15 years. All our friends go there, our kids' friends. It's uncomfortable. We moved to live closer
Scroll down, Bob.
to it, but we had to honor God, not just our own comfort. Amanda said, that's a fair point, Monique. Sex is a very avoided topic. There needs to be more focused mentoring.
Well, that's a point too that I was going to bring up. Is there is a verse about older women mentoring younger women, and I think that that's something that needs to happen more in churches and having significant relationships of women mentoring women. Can we go back to the comments there, Bob?
Amanda said, definitely discipleship needs to be happening. I maintain that churches are failing at discipleship. I would agree with that. I wonder if pastors not shepherding enough individually because they've become more like business owners of these large mega churches, or just trying to compete with that.
Well, I think that's where there's an advantage of like what I see in the Orthodox tradition, where everybody has a spiritual father that stays with them through their life, and that person helps to shepherd them through their life. They know all their business, and they help to advise them spiritually and practically. And I think that's something that's deeply missing from Protestant churches. We don't have proper shepherding. And so I think that loneliness and alienation, it can be a very real problem because we don't have proper shepherding and shepherding practices. And we have so much sexual violation between pastors and congregants too, that doesn't help. So there's a lot of complicated factors.
I agree with that. But
Can you go back to Facebook?
I think that I do think that if, more like the Orthodox tradition, there was a spiritual father, someone to walk that out with you, that could be more helpful and seen as like a provision.
Yeah. Okay.
Amanda says, let me call you this week. Love you. I want to offer you some words of encouragement. She said, I've been a single mom in my late 20s. I understand what you're trying to say. Yes. Thanks. Girl, call me. The experience could be something God is using to grow you to minister to others in similar situations in the future. I completely agree with that and think that that is more, definitely possible, more than possible. And I think that being able to minister to people from that place would be super helpful, because we aren't talking about it. Like, I think that's what grieves me the most, is that it's a silent topic a lot of times. All of this, like this relationship issue, is a very silent topic for singles. And so, yeah. Susanna says, oh, I missed a whole bunch.
Yeah, they're just talking about 1 Corinthians.
Okay.
If a church isn't emotionally safe or spiritually, a person should leave, but not leave God. Yeah, and I think that one of the points I wanted to bring out, since I'm just completely burying myself already in the segment.
I think we both are kind of just out there right now.
I have deep concerns among Protestant practices of leaving institutional Christianity and trying to say, like, well, I can just have a personal relationship with God apart from the church. I have deep problems with that, because the church is the bride of Christ, and we should be connected to the bride if we want to be connected to Jesus. And I know it's a very unpopular view among American Protestants, but I do think that it is important to find our way with a local church and not leave institutional Christianity. I think that is deeply problematic. And I do see some trends among those lines of de-churching and that sort of thing. Cynthia says, I can't figure out why anyone would say that being single is unnatural. We're born single. Yes, but I guess I'm trying to make sense of Genesis 2, that is just such a foundational part of who we are, that we are created, man and woman, to multiply and fill the earth, and we need each other. Mm-hmm. And I think we need each other for the Great Commission too. And so what I mean by unnatural is that we were designed a certain way. Even our anatomy is such that we are designed a certain way to interact with each other and to procreate. Now, that's not to devalue people who aren't married. It's just that is a very important part of who we are. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by unnatural. So maybe it's a very inartful way of saying it.
I think that there is something very, like it is like the command that God gave the man and the woman, go be fruitful, multiply. And
which is a pre-fall commandment. Mm-hmm. It's not that childbearing is a result of the fall. It's more complicated as a result of the fall, more painful. But it is part of our essential human person is to procreate. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. And I think that is maybe part of the reason why it is such a hard situation when, complicated by the fact of American evangelical church culture. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I do agree that, like, we do have that command before the fall, like, go, this was part of our job in the earth. Like, this is what you need to do. You need to work the land, and, you'll have to make it over, and, be fruitful and multiply. I think I agree with you on that. I just, I don't know that I would call it unnatural, but I do think that it
goes against design. I don't know what to call it. That it's just foundational to who we are. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something to think about and ponder on.
Yeah. All right. I think we've had enough.
There's just a few more on Facebook there.
Oh, Cynthia, when I said the silver-haired group, that's funny. Sorry. But it's true. You go from group to group to group to group.
All right. Jennifer says, I wish my mom would get involved in a church for that reason. What about when Paul talks about staying single? Yeah, we talked about that a few minutes ago, Jennifer. I'm pretty sure that those verses in context are talking about it's preferred to stay as you are because of the pressure that the church was in under persecution, that, you know, it was better to stay as they were.
Yeah, and but I also think too, like, there's, you know, he also says, you know, like, you know, I'm not gonna quote it specifically, but like, if you're on fire, then burn. Like, if you're on fire, then like marry. Like, if you're burning with sexual desire, then get married. But we didn't talk about the percentages of men in church versus the percentages of women in church. There's way more women in church than men. And so then do Christian women look outside of the church to find a man?
Well, and that was Paul's admonition. It's better to stay single than to be married to a non-believer. That was another component of his argument, is if you're married to a non-believer, don't divorce them. Mm-hmm. If you're not married, it's better to stay single than to go marry a non-believer.
Yeah,
and
I completely agree
there's
with that.
Also
that's a
ministry
whole level of mess.
Ministry considerations. You know, that for him being single was advantageous because he was basically a missionary. So there's a lot of factors that go into his theology of marriage. But clearly, a person's dignity isn't diminished if they're not married. But yet, it is also God's provision.
I don't know that I agree with that. Like, no, in the eyes of God, their dignity isn't diminished.
Right.
But in the eyes of humans, it kind of is.
But what I'm saying is, in his theology, it's clear to me that the person's dignity isn't diminished if they're single, because he was single.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been a missionary. I've been a single missionary.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of get the look. Like,
sure.
You know, like, or, you know, the older people.
Well, but I'm differentiating between what Paul's teaching was and how people act. Those are two different things. So, all right. You ready to wrap it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We have had fun tonight, people. Y'all didn't see a whole
All
different
right.
side
Be sure to check out our website, allthethingshow.com, and like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the show notes so you can get those. Hopefully I can send them soon. Our web provider only allows me to send 3 a month. So I'm waiting for the renewal. There it is, our podcast. Subscribe to our podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you stream your podcast. Be sure to share the show. And thank you for joining us, as always. Monique's just going to keep writing. So I'll just sign off. Good night.
Good night.
There's nothing left.